My graduation trip. There was a pause. Not confusion. Not disappointment. The kind of pause people take when they think you have accidentally given the wrong answer. Then she said, "Can't you do that another weekend?" I actually laughed, because I thought she was joking. She wasn't. I reminded her that it was booked, paid for, coordinated with other people, and built around graduation. I said I was sorry Jenna canceled, but I could not just erase the whole thing. Her tone changed immediately. "So you'd really let me lose all that money?" That was the first pivot. Not, "I'm stressed," not, "I don't know what to do." Straight to making me responsible for the consequences of a problem I did not create. I told her I was not making her lose anything. Her childcare fell through. That was awful. But it wasn't my fault, and it wasn't mine to fix. She got quiet, then sharper. "Wow," she said. "I didn't realize a little post-grad trip mattered more to you than helping your family." A little post-grad trip. That phrase hit me harder than I expected, because I knew what it meant. It meant she was shrinking the thing before she could ask me to surrender it. It meant if my trip sounded small enough, then my no would sound cruel enough. I said no again. Still calm. Still polite. Still trying to act like this was a normal misunderstanding and not a pattern I had known for years. She hung up on me. 10 minutes later, my mother called. I could tell Valerie had already given her version, because Mom came in ready. "She and Daniel never asked for anything," she said. I almost said that was only true if you ignored all the things they called favors, because they assumed nobody would refuse them. Instead, I said, "Mom, I'm not available. I'm leaving Friday." She sighed and told me I was being rigid. Rigid, another family favorite, a word people use when they want your boundary to sound like a personality flaw. She told me Valerie and Daniel needed this break. She said parents of 3 young kids do not get many chances to reconnect. She said my friends would understand if I backed out. She said I was young and would have plenty of time for more trips. And there it was. Their weekend away counted as necessary. Mine counted as replaceable. I asked her, "Why is their celebration more important than mine?" She did not answer the question. She just said, "That's not fair," which usually means, yes, it is fair, and everybody knows it. By dinner, Valerie had texted me 6 times. The first few were practical. "Can you at least do one night? Can you leave later? Can your friends go without you?" Then they turned personal. "I cannot believe you are doing this. You know how much we needed this. Must be nice to have so few responsibilities." That last message sat on my screen for a long time. Must be nice to have so few responsibilities. As if the years I spent working and studying had been a leisurely hobby. As if not being married with children meant my life was decorative. As if the only labor that counted was the kind that visibly exhausted you in front of other people. One of my friends, Nia, was with me when that text came in. She read it, looked at me and said, "Do they even hear themselves?" That question undid me a little, because until then, part of me still wanted to explain it away. Valerie was stressed. Mom was trying to keep the peace. People say thoughtless things under pressure, but the truth was uglier and simpler. They heard themselves fine. They just did not think. What they were saying about me was a problem. To them, I was the family's emergency cushion. The unattached one. The useful one. The one whose plans looked easiest to erase because nobody had trained themselves to treat them as real. That night, Valerie called again. I answered because I wanted one last chance to end it cleanly. She started crying almost immediately. Not soft crying. Angry crying. The kind that sounds half like hurt and half like accusation. She said Daniel was furious. She said they had already packed. She said the hotel was expensive. She said the kids had been promised a sleepover with me once before and would be disappointed. Then she said the line I still think about. "I just don't understand why your trip is the one thing nobody's allowed to touch. Nobody's allowed to touch." Like I was being precious. Like protecting one hard-earned joy after years of pushing through was some outrageous act of selfishness. And suddenly, everything became clear. Because my trip had always been touchable to them. That was the whole issue. My time was touchable. My money was touchable. My plans were touchable. My milestones were touchable. Anything in my life could be opened, rearranged, or surrendered if somebody older, louder, or more domestically complicated decided they needed it more. So I said, very quietly, "Valerie, the problem is not that I won't save your anniversary weekend. The problem is that none of you think my graduation was worth protecting in the first place." She went silent. Then she snapped, "Oh my God, not everything is about your degree." And there it was, the real confession. Not everything is about your degree. No, of course not. But this one trip was. That was the point. It was 4 days carved out to honor 4 years of work, and somehow even that was too much for them to leave alone. I told her I was sorry her childcare collapsed. I meant that. I told her I hoped she found another solution. I meant that too. But I was not canceling my trip. She said, "Fine." In that flat voice that means this will absolutely not be fine, and hung up. The next morning my mother sent a long text about family priorities, sacrifice, and how people remember who showed up for them. I read it twice. Then, for the first time in my life, I saw the trick inside that message. People remember who showed up for them. What nobody says out loud is that in some families, showing up only counts in one direction. I thought about every time I had adjusted, covered, helped, and smiled so nobody could accuse me of being difficult. I thought about every achievement that had barely touched the room before someone redirected attention back to the nearest practical need. I thought about how quickly my graduation had turned from a source of pride into a scheduling inconvenience. So I sent one reply. I have shown up. What I am asking is for one weekend where that does not require disappearing. Then I put my phone on silent. Friday morning, I got in the car with my friends. I expected to feel guilty the whole drive. Instead, I felt something stranger. Grief. Not because I thought I had done the wrong thing. Because I finally understood my place in the family story. I had been telling myself too kindly. I was not the one they celebrated. I was the one they counted on to make celebration easier for other people. We stopped at a gas station an hour out of town, and while everybody went inside for coffee, I sat alone in the car for a minute and cried. Not dramatic crying. Just the quiet kind that comes when a truth you have been dodging finally lands where it belongs. When my friends came back, nobody forced me to explain. Nia just handed me a coffee and said, "You did not ruin anything. They just got mad you wouldn't hand them yours." That sentence stayed with me the whole weekend. By the second day, the guilt started thinning out. By the third, I was laughing for real. By the fourth, I realized something I wish I had learned younger. The first people to call you selfish are often the people most inconvenienced by your boundaries. When I got home, Valerie still was not speaking to me. Mom was polite in the chilly, ceremonial way people get when they think they are being morally superior. Eventually, I heard, through an aunt, that Valerie and Daniel had canceled their trip and spent the weekend at home with the kids. In other words, the world did not end. No one was abandoned. No great family tragedy unfolded. The only thing that really broke was the expectation that I would always be the easiest plan to cancel. I framed my diploma a week later. It is hanging by my desk now. Sometimes when I look at it, I do not think about the classes or the exams first. I think about that phone call. I think about the moment I realized that some people will clap for your success only as long as it never interrupts their convenience. And I think about the trip I almost gave away, just to stay lovable. I am glad I went. Not because the coast was pretty, though it was. Not because the house was fun, though it was. I am glad I went because for 4 days, I chose to act like my life was real. And once you do that even once, it becomes much harder to go back to being treated like backup labor with a family title.
Thank you for watching. If this story pulled you in, do me one favor. Hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so the next one finds you the moment it drops. Remember, nothing is ever just what it seems. See you on the next one.